My own son looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer welcome in the house I helped him buy. Imagine raising a boy, giving him everything, and then having him treat you like an unwanted guest. That night, my heart broke in ways I didn't think were possible at my age. But what he didn't know was that I had more strength, more wisdom, and more power than he could ever imagine. And while he was busy planning my exit, I was quietly preparing his downfall. Let me take you back to the moment when my son tried to throw me away like old furniture, and I decided to show him why you never underestimate a grandmother with nothing left to lose. Asterisk. I spent my whole life sacrificing for my son. When his father walked out, I worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over his head. I missed meals so he could eat, sold my jewelry so he could pay for college, and even cashed out the last of my retirement to help him buy his dream home. I thought I had built a foundation of love and loyalty, but as the years passed, I started to see small cracks. He stopped calling me mom with warmth. His wife looked at me like I was a burden, and every time I asked for just a little respect, they rolled their eyes. Still, I never imagined it would come to the day where my own son, my blood, would tell me I had no place in his life anymore. Asterisk. The night it all fell apart, we were sitting at the dinner table. His wife made a point to complain about me being in their space, even though I paid half the mortgage. Then, as if rehearsed, my son cleared his throat and said, "Mom, it's time for you to think about moving to a nursing home." The room went silent. My forks slipped from my hand. I stared at him, thinking it had to be a joke. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw nothing but cold calculation. My son, the boy I raised, had chosen convenience over loyalty. He wanted me gone, erased, out of the picture. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. Asterisk. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled and nodded as if I understood. But inside, a fire was burning. They thought I was old, weak, and powerless. But they forgot one thing: I wasn't just living in that house. I was a part owner. Every signature on those documents had my name right next to his. And beyond the paper, I had decades of experience in surviving storms, far worse than a greedy child. So, instead of begging, I began planning. I kept my movements quiet, my voice calm, and my face unreadable. Because if they thought I was going to fade into some nursing home, they were about to learn just how dangerous a silent grandmother can be. Asterisk. The first thing I did was test their loyalty. I told my son I had some money set aside, a small savings account he didn't know about. I watched his eyes light up like a child at Christmas. He asked questions, too quickly, too eagerly, about how much it was and where it was kept. That told me everything I needed to know. I fed him a story about planning to leave it all to him, to see how far he'd go with his greed. Meanwhile, I contacted an attorney, one he didn't know existed. I started moving my finances, changing beneficiaries, and rewriting the will. If he wanted to push me out, I'd make sure the house he thought was his prized possession would become his curse. Asterisk. But revenge has a way of testing your patience. One evening, while I was moving some documents into a locked box, my daughter-in-law walked in unexpectedly. She eyed the papers and asked too many questions. My heart pounded, but I kept my cool, telling her they were just old medical records. She didn't believe me, and I knew she'd run back to my son with suspicions. That night, I overheard them whispering, plotting to get my signature on new documents, papers that would strip me of my share of the house. They thought I was too frail to notice, too trusting to question. But I heard every word, and I decided that the very trap they were setting for me, I'd turn back on them. Asterisk. The day they presented the papers, pretending it was just a routine update, I played along. My son slid the documents across the table, his wife smiling like she had already won. I adjusted my glasses, picked up the pen, and pretended to sign. But what they didn't realize was that I had already met with my attorney that morning. The documents in front of me, fake copies I had swapped in before they even arrived. When they took them away, thinking they'd secured their victory, I felt a strange calm, because the real papers, the ones legally binding, were already filed, making me the sole owner of the house. And my will, it no longer had my son's name anywhere on it. Asterisk. When the truth hit them, it was brutal. A month later, the sheriff delivered an eviction notice, not for me, but for them. My son's face turned pale, his wife burst into tears, and I stood there, steady as a rock. He begged, saying he didn't mean it, that he loved me, that it was all a misunderstanding. But I had seen the greed in his eyes too many times to believe his lies. They packed their bags under the watchful eye of the law, leaving behind the house they thought was theirs. The neighborhood whispered, friends turned cold, and suddenly, The couple who tried to discard me were the ones cast out. Justice, in its quiet way, had been served. Now, when I sit on my porch with a cup of tea, I think about how easily love can turn into betrayal. My son thought age made me weak, but age gave me wisdom, and wisdom gave me power. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's a signature on the right piece of paper, delivered at the perfect moment. And when I hear the echo of their car pulling away that day, I remind myself of one truth. You can push a grandmother to her limits, but you'd better pray you'd never decide to push back.